Welcome to the WP Builds podcast, bringing you the latest news from the WordPress community. Now, welcome your hosts, David Wormsley and Nathan Wrigley.
Hello there and welcome to the WP Builds podcast. This is episode number 143, entitled Only Doing What You're Good At. It was published on Thursday, the 29th of August, 2019. My name's Nathan Wrigley from pictureandword.co.uk, a small web development agency based in the north of England, and I will be joined a little bit later by David Wormsley because we will be doing our discussion all about doing what you're good at. I don't know if you noticed, but we sort of cycle through. Often we do a guest one week, an interview if you like, and then David and I have a discussion the following week, and so it goes. Just a few things before we begin. If I could encourage you to go over to the wpbuilds.com website where you'll find information about everything that we do. We've got a menu at the top, and the first link I'd like to suggest that you look at is the subscribe link. If you click on subscribe, you'll be able to get onto our newsletter. We've got two of them, one to alert you about the podcast and the news that we put out every Monday, and one all about deals. If we find a WordPress deal, we'll let you know about it right away. You can subscribe on your favourite podcast player there and join our Facebook group of 2,200 WordPressers, and we've also got links to our YouTube channel where we post everything as well. The next one I'd like to mention is wpbuilds.com/deals. Over there you'll find, well, it's a bit like Black Friday, but every day of the week. There's a whole ton of WordPress deals, coupon codes for percentages off all sorts of different things, absolutely loads of them. It's growing and growing. So go check that out if you're in the market for a particular plugin or possibly theme. And also wpbuilds.com/advertise if you would like to advertise on WP Builds, a little bit like the Page Builder Framework have done. Do you use a page builder to create your websites? Well, the Page Builder Framework is a mobile responsive and lightning fast WordPress theme that works with Beaver Builder, Elementor, Breezy and other page builders. With its endless customization options in the WordPress customizer, it's the perfect fit for you or your agency. Go to wp-pagebuilderframework.com today. And we do thank the Page Builder Framework for supporting the WP Builds podcast. Okay, let's get stuck into today's episode. It's all about only doing what you're good at. I think we've all been there before. We know that as WordPress freelancers, we've got hundreds of different hats that we can wear. We could be a branding expert, a copywriter, a UX person. SEO's important. Getting the right photographs, being able to use PHP and all the other languages that we might need. How do we manage it all? What's the best way for coping with this? Are we the kind of person that always says yes to projects, even though that we know that half of the things that we need to be able to do would be better done by somebody else? Or are we good at farming this work out? Do we like learning new things? Or do we keep ourselves awake at night worrying about the things that we've taken on? Not suggesting we've got the answers, but it's a nice chat with David and I. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoy it.
Today's discussion, we're calling Only Doing What You're Good At. Nathan, you started this one. This is something you wanted to talk about. So do you want to explain what the title means, really?
Yeah, I suppose it comes from the point of view that the job that we do is not really one job. Where, if as a freelancer, at least anyway, we're trying to do a multitude of tasks, even though you may not write them all down and think about them. We've written a list out, which we'll no doubt come to in a few minutes, but it's quite long. You know, there's quite a lot of things involved in being a freelancer, and even if you're working in an agency, I'm sure that from time to time you'll be asked to do something which isn't necessarily what's written on the job description, and it's born out of the frustration over many years of realizing that there are a whole bunch of things that are not my area of expertise, shall we say, things that I'm really not that great at. And yet, I often find it difficult, whether from an economic point of view, you know, because I want to ensure that the bank balance is sufficiently large at the end of the month to pay all the bills. I kind of take a lot of these jobs on, even though I know that probably the end result would be achieved more quickly and probably a whole lot better if I was to farm it out to somebody. So really it's having a discussion about recognizing that we're all limited in our capabilities and trying to work out how we cope with that in our business, and whether or not we should be doing everything because that's better for the bank balance, or whether we should be farming things out and growing a network of people around us who we can trust to do those things, and having the confidence to say, okay, please will you handle this and I'll give you all the responsibility for it.
Yeah. Do you know, I'd love to do that. I think circumstances kind of just really set that I have to be this generalist, but I'd love to be able to do more of that. But shall we have a look at the list that we came up with of all the kind of skills or disciplines that needed?
I'm sure this list is fairly not complicated, comprehensive, that's the word I'm after. But I'm sure equally, by the time we finished it, you'll be thinking to yourself, listeners, that, you missed this out and you missed that out. But yeah, go for it. What are some of the things? And then we could circle back and talk about some of them in more depth.
Well, maybe at the beginning, perhaps, of a project, you might need some kind of branding expert, someone who can take someone through the process of, what people want to, what vision you want to present to people. So that's probably its own skill in itself, which we often do. I'm going to skip one that you just added, Nathan, because I think this is a key one. But the next one was copywriters. Yep. We sometimes get involved in doing that. UX and UI specialists, and I guess they're two separate things, really. Yep. SEO, digital marketing, so funnels, A/B testing, analyzing. There's the graphic artists, there's the photographers, there's the back-end developers, PHP, that kind of thing, front-end, HTML, CSS developers, JavaScript developers. That's where our list went, except for you added one on, which I think is a key one, which is what we called communicator, didn't we? Somebody who's able to, maybe that's a salesperson. We need to be a salesperson.
Yeah, salesperson, for want of a better word. I just wrote down communicator. But yeah, the ability, it comes down to the reason I didn't write salesperson, I think probably was because it could be anything. It could be standing in a room with somebody and just literally shooting the breeze in a sort of confident way. But the ability to communicate your ideas effectively, to talk and to come across as somebody who's confident, capable, and also kind of likable all at the same time, because I think all of those things are important. And if you were to look at that list of, let's say there was probably about 12 things you rattled off there, every single one of those could be a job description. You could be an SEO specialist and wear that badge, and that's all you do every day. A photographer, that could be all that you do every day. Graphic designer, again, same thing. Yeah. Front-end developer, back-end developer, copywriter. We've all heard, oh, I know a friend, she's a copywriter. Oh, I've got a colleague who's an SEO specialist. I'll put you in touch with them. And yet, as a freelancer, to some extent, we try to wear all of these hats. And is that true of you? Do you, as a generalist, do you try to do most of these if somebody comes to you for a website, or are there areas where you've clearly figured out, no, this is well beyond my capability level, I'm going to hand it over to somebody else?
Well, truthfully, I mean, I guess I'm doing all of these roles to a different, a standard all the way through, because it just kind of rests with me. I've really very rarely pass anything off. Can I just add in, actually, that communicator, when you think about it, there's another 3 roles that come under that, because we've got the project manager, we've got the sales, and we've got the marketing. We have to do all of those as well, don't we?
I'm going to add those in that case. Project manager, sales... And what was the last one?
Oh, I've just forgotten already. Marketing. Separate.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. All of those things need to be put under the banner of communicator. So it's enormous. And in my case, I think the reason that, well, we'll come on to the sort of the problems that this creates later, but the reason that I think freelancers get caught in the trap, and I want to make it very clear, I get caught in this trap. I'm not sort of trying to claim that, this is me looking from afar, claiming that I've kicked the habit. Not at all. This is me all the time. I get caught in the trap of not necessarily claiming that I can do all these things, but saying, oh yes, I can do that for you. simply because of the fact that it comes down to the bank balance. I just want to be able to, if I get a project and I quote for it, on the whole, I want to be able to think, okay, that's great. I've quoted for that, and I can rely on that amount of money going into my business account upon completion of it. Which is absolutely crackers. That makes absolutely no sense, because obviously I could be looking for additional work if I handed on large portions of that project. But also I think there's something about, certainly when I started out doing this job, the inability to say no. I had this kind of thought that, let's say that 5 people were pitching for a particular website. I had a thought that, well, they must be able to do all these things. They must be able to do all these things because I'm kind of striving to do them all. So they can probably do them all. And they can, not only that, they can probably do them better than me. So, it seems like a point of weakness if I say, well, we'll get an SEO company to do the SEO. We'll get a front-end developer to do this part of it. And I don't know why I thought that. It seems crackers, but that's how it went.
Yes. Well, I think you're better than me for this, because you've always said that you will pass on sort of graphic work to someone else to do.
Yeah. That is the one thing that and that was born out, I think, of a good circumstance more than anything else, in that I had and have a few people around me who I know very well on a personal level who happen to do these jobs incredibly well. So I was able to approach them at the beginning, and I had an instant rapport, and I could, literally go round for a cup of tea and talk through the project and so on. So that was fabulous. So I wonder if there's some aspect of that in it. If I'd have had to have gone out and burned through 3 or 4 different graphic designers until I finally found the right one, maybe I would still be trying to do that as well. But it is an area where I think there's a slight difference in that. If you code something badly in HTML, but it looks the same on the site, nobody's going to know. I mean, you'll know. And somebody who is critically taking the site apart will know, good grief, there's 24 nested divs when they could have done it with 1. Nobody's going to know, not really. But graphic design, everybody knows straight away. And it's the same with photography. Everybody knows straight, wow, you really can't take photographs. Wow, that looks awful. So maybe there's something in there as well. I felt immediately that and I know this to be true, it's still the case, my graphic design skills are akin to that of a cushion, I would say.
But do you not get some joy out of doing this? I mean, I think this has got to be a big definer. Well, maybe, actually, I'm going to ask you another question. How do you know what you're good at? Out of all of these?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I suppose you make comparisons, don't you? Look at what other people are doing and you think, yeah, I've done that. I can do that. And yes, you're right. There is a lot of pleasure in doing it. I like writing text, so the copywriter bit I like doing. I, to some extent, enjoy doing kind of SEO work. I don't claim to be an expert at it, and no doubt, if you really, really, really need to get to the top of Google, I'm not the person to do that for you necessarily. Somebody who's got a very large budget and is able to invest in those things probably would be better off getting an SEO expert or getting me to get them an SEO expert. But yeah, you're right. I do enjoy most of these tasks. I suppose that's part of it as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that you probably are going to be a good judge of whether you're good or bad at something. We were talking about this earlier, wasn't we? I was mentioning the Dunning-Kruger effect, this term used in psychology, and it's where people who are not particularly good at things don't also have the skills to know that they're not good at them. So, I've seen it plenty of times. I was talking about, the fact that you can see singers who just cannot pitch a note, but they will believe they are good singers, but they just literally do not know they're not good.
Yes, that's fascinating. I mean, really fascinating. I was telling you a story about, I certainly won't be mentioning any names, but a situation in which I witnessed something. This is going back a few years. I'm not going to tell you where, even just so there's no hint of like guesswork, where I watched somebody talking through the website that they'd built for somebody. And it was absolutely obvious they didn't have a clue what they were doing, and yet they positioned themselves as an expert. You know, they were in the room to be the expert, and they were 100% relying on every member of that room being completely ignorant about any form of web development, and I happened to be in the room. As it happens, I kept my mouth tightly shut until they'd left, and then explained to the people, good grief, you know, this let me just put a different complexion on a lot of this stuff. But it was interesting to be in the presence of somebody who, whether or not they had this Dunning-Kruger effect, as you describe it, or they were just an amazing, in inverted commas, going back to what we mentioned a moment ago, an amazing communicator. I don't know, but there wasn't even the excuse of, well, they're just representing the company. They're not claiming to be no, they were absolutely claiming to be everything, that they were knowledgeable about everything. So it was remarkable seeing that, and they totally got away with it, which is, I always found really interesting. Whereas I would have been, I would have had skin crawls just thinking about having to, you know, pretend to be like that.
Yeah, you know, that's just the thing, isn't it? I find that clients, you know, if I feel like I've done a really good job, I'm not even sure if the clients know the difference between a good and a bad job on many things. The ones that you mentioned are not so obvious. The visuals, they probably will get, but then again, there's a certain, you know, style and aesthetic that people like, certain preferences. But at the end of the day, it sounds like you're just describing a very good salesperson, and perhaps there's one thing that we can't easily get rid of ourselves as a business.
Yeah, I mean, that much is clear. He was an amazing salesperson. I think that's where I kind of thought his role should have ended. You know, I think if he'd have made it clear that he was here to be the salesperson, and that he would, you know, upon answering their questions, he would, you know, write them all down and go and find out from his team. But he didn't do it that way. He claimed to have the answers to everything, and what came out of his mouth was just factually wrong, you know, certifiably nonsense. And I thought that was interesting. But what was also interesting was the fact that he got away with it. You know, he was able to persuade them. And if I hadn't have been in the room, I actually don't know what happened with that project. I've no idea if they listened to me or anything of that nature. But if I hadn't have been in the room, they would have very much felt that that this guy was capable of doing these things. And I don't even know how he got the project to where it was at that point. I'm guessing he left the office and then made a lot of telephone calls and got people to do things for him, because clearly his role is as marketer, but he was pretending to be a developer, a PHP guy, a graphic designer, a SEO, everything all in one.
Yeah, and one these days, I mean, you can jump on so many forums and get help from various different people, you know, so you can you can bluff it. But, you know, I mean, I don't want to venture into politics, but it does seem to me that we're living in an era where it's much more like that in a way. You know, it's, you know, we've got world leaders who generally we don't necessarily think they're the most competent people in the world, but somehow they get voted for because they carry the message we like. We know their sort of weaknesses, if you like, but they seem to talk to us. And I think maybe that's the thing about the communicator. They may well not buy the fact that they're that knowledgeable about what they do, but they just buy into their conviction to it. Yeah,
we're constantly talking about confidence, aren't we? You know, you have confidence in yourself, believe in yourself, and all of this. You know, it's quite a normal thing in the Western world, I think, to kind of, you know, just you'll figure it out later. Just be brave, be ballsy, just go for it, and so on and so forth. But that's one of those are the moments in my career where I've had the most stress, where I've kind of, and I think it can all be summed up in one word, honestly, and I think the word is pride. I was too kind of proud to, you know, sitting in a client meeting and somebody said, okay, we want this to happen. And honestly, I can't think of any example off the top of my head right now, but we would like this to happen. And I know, because I can feel it inside, what I'm actually thinking is, oh man, how am I going to do that? And then on the outside, pride, I don't know why, I sort of say, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And then having to go away and and figure it out, because I've claimed that it was something that I was comfortable to do. And luckily, in just about all cases, figured it out. But the stress that those moments create are horrible. They are the proper late night, it's not working. You wake up, your wife, in my case, my wife wakes up the next morning and I've clearly not had any sleep. And, did you figure it out? No, I still haven't figured it out. Oh no, this is horrible. Those have been moments that I could have avoided simply by saying, I don't know how to do that, but I'll find somebody that can, and I'll get right back to you, and we'll tell you how we're going to go about doing that. And I've learnt those lessons the hard way. And in my case, rather than that propelling me to find a whole bunch of people around me who could make up a great team, what I've done instead, and I think probably the same is true for you, is that I've sort of shrunk back from that a little bit and just limited the scope of what I want to take on, so that the tasks that I do are more within my comfort zone. And if they're not in my comfort zone, they're not miles out of it. I know that with a bit of study I can figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've done the same as you. One of the first jobs that I took on, because I wasn't aware of something that they had mentioned earlier. I said, I can do all of what's needed, but there was just one sort of detail which I've not thought about, and that was it. It was, over a week of sleepless nights trying to work out how I was going to get round this one. And it didn't even occur to me to just sort of hold my hands up at the time and just say, this is beyond my ability. So,
do you think that's a maturation thing? Do you think that's as you get older, clearly that's nonsense. Some people at the age of 5 will figure that stuff out. But in my case, I think it was a mixture of maturity and also the capability for me to actually admit to not only myself but to other people that I don't know how to do these 12 different tasks that we've listed out. But I can find a person that can, and nobody thinks that's weird.
Yeah, I know. I think I don't think it's maturity. Well, maybe if confidence comes with maturity, because the period I'm talking about is not that many years ago, and I'm getting on a bit. So, it shouldn't be maturity. I think it's literally the fact that what's happened since then is that I've grown in confidence,
right? And
so now I feel happier to say I can't do this, because I feel like I've got. I've done enough jobs behind me to know that I'm fairly okay at what I do. And I think that's made a big difference.
Yeah. Thinking about it as well, maybe that's the point. Maybe the maturity isn't some sort of internal mechanism dealing with my own pride. Maybe it's that I've just done enough jobs to know where my strengths are. And although I've never written out this list before of jobs, on some sort of anecdotal level, I know which are my areas of expertise, and so I've now figured out what I can get away with and which. And also I've become better at kind of guiding the conversation, I think, a little bit, in meetings, kind of working out ways of letting the client go off in random tangents, which is ultimately going to go down blind alleys, and steering the conversation to what I know is likely to be the best outcome, just because I've tried so many things and failed and had clients that made me do things and I agreed to it, and it was really obvious that it was a complete waste of time and nobody should have done it in the first place, and I've probably become better at that.
Yes, absolutely. It's just reminded me of some project that I mentioned before to you that I've got, and one sort of detail of that is that it's coming to me from somebody else and they want certain things to happen, but they're not absolutely clear on what it is. But they've got an idea, and can I do it? But what's happened, I've read some of the emails and they referred to me as the developer. So I now have the confidence to say, look, you refer to me as developer. I really am not in the true sense. What I can do for you, and that just explained the process, really. I've got tools out there that help me to bluff it as a developer, and I know how to manipulate them enough. But if it needs more, then, we can get somebody in and I can do that for you.
Do you actually say it in quite so an affirmative way? Do you use the word bluff? I'm bluffing it, or do you couch it?
Sorry, Rodney. Yeah, I think I I write things a bit more carefully than that. But I'm just, what I'm saying is I use tools and I know how to use them, and it allows us a great saving to them to do more, because we're really just using stuff that's common to most websites to be able to achieve a certain goal. But if you want something very, very custom that you hadn't sorted out yet, I don't have those kind of language skills to be able to write this thing from scratch, but I know people who will.
Yeah.
Just to set it up in the first place, to know that their budgets are going to when they don't know exactly what they want something to do, just make them aware that there's a budget consideration.
Yeah. You only have to go into kind of Facebook groups and online forums to realize that this problem is being reflected thousands of times a day, because people asking questions. I've got this client that wants to do this, and can anybody help me? And you're relying on the community. So clearly it's not me and you in this alone. We're all in this together. There's obviously people taking on stuff that they are as yet unfamiliar with how to achieve the end goal. Not trying to put myself on a pedestal at all, because what I'm about to say I absolutely have not implemented. But I was thinking about this whole topic of the things that I shouldn't be taking on, and whether or not that's copywriting or SEO, it doesn't really matter. We're all going to be different. You will have a different set of things that you don't that somebody else could do better than you in a fraction of the time. My thoughts turn to how this might improve the work that I have to do and my available time. And I came up with a list of 5 bullet points. So if work was no problem, if I constantly had a supply of work coming through the door and I could forget about the bank balance, let's just say that at the beginning. I think being able to second out or dep out all of the things that you're not very good at to other people would potentially lead to the following 5 outcomes. Number 1, the work would be better. The SEO work, the graphic design work would be of a better standard, because you've got somebody at the end of the day who is better at those jobs. That would potentially lead to a less stressful life for me or you, depending on the way that you're thinking about this, because you would have farmed it out and you don't have to do those things which you secretly know you're not very good at, and that would be nice. It would mean less work, because somebody who is a graphic designer can do in 5 minutes what it would take me an hour and 6 Google tutorials to figure out how to do. The knock-on of that would be that the clients would be happier, because things have come in on time, on budget, and the quality is really good. And finally, more work for you, because you've delivered something better. Everybody's happy, you're less stressed. So it's like this virtuous cycle, and yet I don't do it. I still take on all the things that I know that somebody else would be better at, and I puzzle. Why is that?
Yeah, perhaps you enjoy a lot of it. I mean, there is, I must admit, I kind of like most of these different areas to learn more about it. And for a long time, I thought, because when you talk about this, when you're giving this work out to different people, then effectively you're removing that work from yourself. So you could concentrate, say, on your marketing for your business to get more work in. But then effectively you've set yourself up in a manager role, haven't you? You stop learning so much and hand it out. You turned into a proper agency.
Well, I think that's probably what it is. It's, in my case, what I've just described is an agency, but with a bunch of freelancers kind of loosely shackled to each other, as opposed to sitting in an office. It's kind of, I don't know what that model's called, but it's a bunch of freelancers who kind of made an agreement that upon receiving some work, okay, I'll give you the graphics, I'll give you the photography, and I'll always give you and quid pro quo. If we keep that up, we'll all be happy forevermore. Just haven't made those connections, largely because I've done what I've done, which is try to do it myself. Probably being a bit hard on myself, because at the end of the day I managed to get these things finished and have a whole bunch of happy clients, so that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess a whole bunch of agencies out there are some kind of configuration of that. They're not permanent staff that are employed by the agency, but they are a bunch of freelancers who you trust to do work. There's a friend of ours, we won't mention him in case he doesn't like it, but he's been doing a lot more of that. He's been hiring various developers over the time and other people to do the maintaining of sites, and is also recently been using a service to get his graphic work done. So he is removing himself slowly from a lot of the processes, and it does at the moment for him appear to be really improving the work.
Yeah, very intelligent. It's a good way of doing it. I think another factor here is, first of all, I do want to emphasize the economic factor. I think that's important to really emphasize, is that I think the pressure to do this stuff largely, not only does it come from the enjoyment of those jobs, because there is that without a doubt, but it is, let's be honest, there's a lot of economics in it. I for a start, I can't afford, and when I say I in this, I'm talking about you, anybody, not actually me in this case. I haven't got the time to go and find these people, because I might have to burn through 3 or 4 of them, and I might have to drive to a different location and meet them and come to some informal arrangement. I don't know anybody who's an SEO expert. How do I even begin to find them? That kind of thing. But also the reality of just paying the bills. You've got to, at the end of the month, meet a certain amount to sustain your life, and keeping all that work under your own purview means that you've got the money. And if you give it to somebody else, that does, by definition, mean that you need to churn more work, because you've got to, instead of one piece of work, if you're farming out 4/5 of it, you've got to find 5 projects where before you could find 1.
Yes, that's the problem. Particularly if you think, your reach, the number of clients that you could get is kind of limited, then definitely you can't really do that so much.
Yeah, and I think go on.
Yeah, but no, I just think that's the thing, if you get rid of all of that work and leave you to do more of the marketing to get more clients, but you don't really believe that you can kind of expand, or don't want to expand beyond the area that you cover, then you're really only shooting yourself in the foot, aren't you?
Yeah. The other thing, I suppose, is that thinking about like the future, the roles of only doing what you're good at, who knows what that list will encompass in 10 years' time? What tasks could we add to that list? So, will SEO have changed? Will there be some other branch? Will there be a branch of SEO where it's voice activated search only? Will there be a whole different area? Like, go back 10 years, nobody knew what a funnel was. It didn't really exist. And yet now there are people doing that. And no doubt, programming languages will come along, methods of development will change, the expectations of clients will have changed, and the industry will morph. And how much of that do you need to keep abreast of? How much learning do you need to keep doing? And being good at, because it's that can be a bit of a grind as well. And doing the things that you are accustomed to and you're good at can be quite enjoyable because you're familiar with it. Yeah.
Hey, there's one solution. Well, the solution I found, I guess, to particularly the skills I'm most fearful of are the kind of more developer ones, where somebody wants something to happen on the website that I'm not skilled to do. But really, it has been the budget that's done that. Now I've become much better now at being able to say, look, this is what I do. I use this is why I can do kind of all of it, if you like, because I've got these tools. And if you need to go beyond that, the budget's there. And I've noticed that just changes client behavior, being able to have that conversation. So, but when it was a different setup for me, when you had to say, how much am I going to charge you to do this project? There's a different expectation. Now it's they're going to save money by not wanting something, or at least they're going to reevaluate what's a priority to them. So what's happening for me is that there's less of a need to go and get those people with back-end skills or JavaScript skills.
I suppose that the point about all of this is that none of those skills are out. Well, actually, maybe there's a conversation to be had here. It feels to me like, given enough time and enough scope in my life to actually sit down. I could probably become pretty good at any one of those. I could probably become really, a half decent SEO person if I had the time, or dare I say it, quite good with graphic design or something. I don't see those things as beyond my reach. But time is the factor. Learning new skills is difficult, and learning them to become an absolute legend, to become one of the the leading ones in your area or country or whatever, is difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, I feel like I'm fairly comfortable in most of these areas in terms of what I deliver, or the expectation I set now, because the maturity that we've kind of gained all the time we've been doing it. So I feel quite comfortable with doing them. I'm never going to be brilliant at any of these, but there are certain things where I don't want to hand them over, because in fact I had this with a client who wants to kind of rebuild a site, and it was done by my colleague, and they want a new look with it, and they were talking to somebody else about helping them with doing their logos, and I just thought it was a really awkward conversation, because I was going to have to do their website, and I didn't want them. I only wanted them to have a branding expert who would come in, who would ask them all the questions that needed to be asked, if you like, of their brand. And that's one of the difficulties that I find. I'm getting protective over certain stuff, because I don't think somebody makes a logo, if they go buy one off Fiverr, right, it's not going to kind of work.
Speaking of that, it kind of leads me on, I suppose, to talk about whether your ability or lack of, and my ability or lack of, to enjoy the process of managing other people. Do you feel, well, just to take my example, I'm in many aspects of my life, I think I'm fairly laissez-faire, but with work, I don't think I would be a particularly good manager. And before we started recording this, I tried to lay out my thoughts on it. And the way I sort of see it is, when I do my own work, I'm the buck stops with me. If something doesn't get done and I've said that I'm going to do it, I have to wear that, and I have to take on that stress. But I've got it. The thing that I think would make me a terrible manager is I would feel the same level of stress, but I'd have farmed that work out to other people. So let's say that I was in a team and I managed 10 people on a graphic design project, or a WordPress website project, and I'd farmed, and under me I had a graphic designer and an SEO expert and all of those kind of things. I think I would still feel that the buck stopped with me, even though I was farming out to employees the same work. I would still feel, they haven't done it right. Oh no, I'm going to get so told off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Your name on the door.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got a different perspective, because I was so long as a manager, but of course it's not my money. So, but I've become aware that if I needed to go down that route again and employ people, that I would have to, take on what I've learned from being a manager, that, they're not going to do stuff as conscientiously as you might do it. Mm. They're not, they're employed. They haven't got the same enthusiasm for it, or there's not the same incentives there. So you kind of have to live with that, and you would have to cost that to clients to be able to do that as well, and allow for it. But then, the other side of it is that, if you're going to make people work for you well and enjoy their work so they do work well, you have to give them that autonomy. You have to give them trust.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult thing. And I think that's why, if you try and work as a group or set up an agency without any of that experience, that's the mistake you're going to make. But I think for any business, isn't it? It grows out. You expect this person you're going to pay money to, and you slightly begrudge it because it's money you could have for yourself.
Yeah.
That they're going to have the same incentives as you, and that's a mistake.
It's also, I think, quite important to make the right, especially if you're involved in hiring people, it's important that you don't hire people who end up taking all of the stuff that you are good at, leaving yourself with something to do. Otherwise, you'll just potentially end up just as a manager. If your enjoyment is React development, and you see that your agency's growing, and okay, what do we need? Oh, more React developers, and then suddenly turn around and I've got nothing to do now because he's doing it or she's doing it. It's just a different skill, and one that I've never really got into. I think, as I said earlier, a bit of pride, bit of fear, not wanting to have that responsibility for other people and so on and so forth. But really interesting stuff.
Our list, though, if we looked at it, we could shop some of these things out, couldn't we, very easily, I think?
Yes.
I think, should we just go back over it? Because I was just thinking, JavaScript, if somebody required something clever, no problem.
I know quite a few people who would take that job on willingly for me, I'm sure. They're experts at JavaScript. Yep, good, tick.
Yep. Front end, I think I'm okay with that myself.
I'm happy with that. Yeah, I would say that unless there is some startling development in the next few years, I will be happy doing the HTML and CSS.
Yeah, back end, if it doesn't come in a plugin, it's off to somebody else.
Okay, yeah, I take a bit of that, but not increasingly not.
Yeah, exactly. If it's something you can do, if the shareable kind of short code work or something you can do, or just some snippets around, I would dabble, but that's it.
Right. Okay. Fair play. Yep.
Yep. For photographs, easy.
Absolutely, 100% of the time. That. Yeah.
Graphic artists.
Well, interesting. I think. This is hard. I'm more likely to try to do that myself now than I would have done 5 years ago, largely because I just think the range of the tools that are available and the templates that are available, which we've talked about on a different podcast, mean that maybe this isn't something that is out of everybody's reach. There's a lot of things that can be done with available tools. So 50-50 on that one.
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, there's some joy in trying to improve my skills in that area, but also I'd be quite happy if I think I was stuck to pass that onto a service if there was the budget for it. Digital marketing.
This feels to me like one that I can grasp because it's kind of formulaic. You make the flow chart and so on, but I don't I have not had a great deal of need to become really good at this. So were I to land a client tomorrow who had high expectations of a very complicated funnel, I think this would be one for me to hand over.
Really interesting. Because do you know what? I mean, we would be talking about the fact that maybe this is the way that we all need to go a little bit, because it might be easier to build websites. So I think I would be diving in, even if it was costing me more than they were paying me.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. You see, now you're bringing back my pride thing, and now I'm thinking, all right, Dave can do it. Oh yeah, well, I should be doing it as well now. Yeah.
I think I would bluff that one, and I would spend the hours it needed to work it out, because I think it might just be yeah. SEO. Now that's an interesting one.
It is, and it's also something that, on a personal level, I find a little bit uninteresting. So just from that point of view only, I'd probably say I'd hand that over to somebody, because I'm not that bothered in looking at spreadsheets over long periods of time and working out how we're creeping up. I don't know. I like the visual stuff more, I think.
Yeah. Actually, probably SEO needs to be broken down into a lot of stuff, actually. True. Because there's a part of me that just thinks, well, they're all charlatans out there, so I'm going to do it myself.
Yes. I might as well be a charlatan with them.
But there is another angle which I wouldn't want to touch at all, which is, say, if you wanted somebody to manage a Google ad campaign or something, it's like, please take that away from me.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I've dabbled with that before and found it incredibly frustrating. So absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, this one's impossible, isn't it? UX and UI, because isn't it just bound up with the other stuff?
Yeah, and also I think that training counts a lot here. And it's kind of an ephemeral thing. I did a webinar recently with Peacha Neri, and it's pretty clear from the get-go that she was spotting things that my radar didn't even notice. And whilst I'm sure that if I spent the time looking at it, I could probably get up to some, half-decent version of Peacha, The fact is she's already done all that research and went to college and has a great deal of experience thinking about it. So don't know. Yeah, probably good to hand that one over as well. Crikey, I'm talking myself out of a job here.
Well, that's interesting as well, because in a way, although a scary thing to do, that would be a very good service to be able to hand over to somebody else that you offer to the client. But they'd be looking over your work to see what could be improved, wouldn't they?
Oh,
work that you've already been done.
There would be plenty to say.
Yeah,
copywriting. Do you know what? I like writing, and although I don't write on behalf of other people. And I simply don't have the time. This is actually one that I would like to do just because I enjoy it. I really do. I genuinely like writing, but I wouldn't want to do it. If somebody said, "Okay, we need 40 blog posts about peanuts," that's not the kind of writing that I'd be interested in. It's something a bit more interesting. In my case, I really like writing about WordPress because it interests me. So if it was bog standard stuff, no. But if it was like slightly more interesting, research based. Oh yeah, quite like that.
Well, actually, we've just given ourselves another job here, haven't we? Which is a content marketer, somebody who creates the content needed. Although that could go under SEO, but I love that. I tell you what I like. I quite like the idea of coming up with things like a value proposition for a client. I'd love to do that kind of stuff. See if I can sum up what they're about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. There's a lot of thought and interest and artistry in there. That's nice.
Yeah.
Communicator. I don't know. I'm not too bad communicating verbally, but I don't think I'm like I said before, I would be hopeless as a project manager. I'm not very good at sales and marketing speak. I just don't find myself capable in those areas. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think the general communicator role I'm happy with. I want it to be me that talks to the clients, and I think I'm okay. But really, I would do myself such a favor, I guess, if I handed over sales and marketing to somebody to do it, because I'm just so useless. Yeah.
And branding expert. Well, I think that's a bit UI UX feel again, graphic design again, isn't it? There are definitely people better than me. I enjoy doing that stuff. I really do enjoy doing that stuff. Try to make things look nice, achieve a coherence. But again, there are people who are better than me. Good grief.
Yeah. Also, I think there are people that probably should have been in before they came to you. So a company probably should have had its brand and what it's about defined before they come to us. So we should receive that brief.
Yeah, that's a good point. So essentially, this podcast was entitled Only Doing What You're Good At. What we've decided is that we're mostly good at nothing. And so what we should do is farm all the work out to somebody else. But that then requires us to be a manager. And in my case, at least anyway, I'm no good at that. So I should retire.
Well, I've just come to the conclusion that we should just continue doing a little bit of all of these things because we're probably better at that than being a manager.
Yeah, so we're right back where we started with all the stresses and strains. Yeah, anybody got the perfect answer to this conundrum? Please let us know, because David and I don't have a clue, it would seem. But it's been nice chatting it through and getting all that stuff off our chest. I'm sure that some people somewhere can identify with it all. Nice one. That was a nice chat. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Always a pleasure to chat to David through these things. Join us next week, because next week we'll very likely have an interview, because we swap interview and then chat with David, interview and then chat with David, and so on. So join us for that. But also just bear in mind that every Monday we produce 2 pieces of content. Early in the morning, I produce a WordPress weekly news. I sum up the WordPress news in audio form. But also at 2 p.m. UK time in the Facebook group on our YouTube channel, we put out a live episode with me and a few special guests from the WordPress community. And unless I'm on holiday or something, that should be coming out on a Monday at 2 p.m. UK time. The WP Builds podcast was brought to you today by WP and Up. 1 in 4 of us will be directly affected by mental health related illness. WP and Up supports and promotes positive mental health within the WordPress community. This is achieved through mentorship, events, training and counselling. Please help enable WP and Up by visiting wpandup.org.uk. /give. Right, okay, that really is all I've got for you this week. I'm going to fade in some cheesy music and say bye-bye for now.